Evening, day walkers and night stalkers. It's me, your twisted southern horror queen, coming to you live from under a full moon right here in southeastern Louisiana. The show's being broadcast tonight and every Monday night by Armed Radio Digital and TuneIn Satellite, the only networks with balls big enough to send this madness out to 62 countries worldwide. That takes a whole lot of balls, folks. But if you guys already know you're watching the show live on Facebook tonight, however, there are a ton of other places where you can catch the show both live or recorded just in case you're tied up tonight. I love being tied up. That whole bondage thing just rocks, right? Anyway, you can catch us on Spreaker, iHeart, YouTube. There's an Android app, The Garden, and a ton of other spots. So when in doubt, Google the Twisted Southern Horror Queen and just check out all the carnage that comes up. It's awesome, right? All right, so before we get started tonight, we got a couple of things we need to go over. And first thing, as always, is the recap from last week's show. This is a reminder, if you were tuning in, it's a tease to those that may have missed it. And you can go to all those links that we were just talking about and check it out there if you missed out Monday night. So we talked about a ton of creepy-ass grave sites like the Black Angel Monument and Nancy Barnett's grave. That's the chick that her family made them pave the road around her grave because she wasn't going nowhere, right? Then let's see, Lily Gray's grave. That was the victim of the beast /666. The Jewett City vampire graves and the Chase Fault. Now, that was some madness right there, right? But that's not where it ended, because we talked about some crazy-ass haunted prisons as well, like the Ohio State Penitentiary, Alcatraz, and the Eastern State Penitentiary, and the old Charleston Jail. That's where Lavinia Fisher and her old man were locked up. Remember that crazy bitch? She was thrown off, right? Let's see who's in the house tonight. We got the big boss, Joe Savino, Frank Dragotta, my boy Freddie, he's in the house. Ronnie and Lori Owens from Texas. Mark Lee is available. Anthony Jude Torres. Big Johnny Blender Gibson is in the house. Homer's in the house. Lee Parnell, one of my most favoriteest twins that I met at Spooky Empire. Hello, my love. Trey Johnson's in the house. What's up? Back at you, Slick. And Ronnie says, hey, Blender's happy Thanksgiving birthday to y'all. Same to you. And there's my Aunt Myrtle. Oh, good Lord, you're going to hate me after the show. So you may not want to stay tuned in for the entire episode. But anyway, so we're rolling on. It's time to move on, right? But before we do, I've got to give a shout out to our newest sponsor, Naked Wines. A little naked, but awesome wine. They are hooking us up with some sweet ass promos, and because you guys tune into the Twisted Southern Horror Queen show every Monday night, y'all are going to be first in line. You don't know about all the good stuff before everybody else even hears a whisper. Here's to y'all. Oh my God, that's awesome. Yeah, y'all know I'm going to hook up the Southern Horror Queen horde. Just got to do it. There's a lot of stuff that's getting ready to go down around here. So you guys got to stay tuned in on that, because there's, like I said, a whole lot of stuff. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag just yet, except for maybe one little thing. All right. Everybody knows that Christmas is coming up. Yeah, no, we're not even through Thanksgiving yet. However, you got to start saving your money, because you got a whole lot of friends you got to buy stuff for. And you know you got that one creepy kid on your list that you're sick and damn tired of buying black t-shirts and black sweaters for. They don't need it anymore. Trust me, they're like me. Their closet is full of black. We don't do colors. But there is something really cool that you can pick up for them. Nobody else knows about this yet. Just you guys tuning in here tonight. So, Black Friday, yeah, the day after Thanksgiving, I'm going to start running some promos, but you guys can take advantage of them immediately. Don't message me on the side. Send me an inbox and let me know if you're interested. Now, here's what I'm doing. You can pick up one or all of the Adrian Trilogy series, autographed to whoever your favorite creepy kid is, or you can buy the entire Adrian Trilogy series pack. That comes with a t-shirt, and you're going to have to tell me their size. If you guess wrong, that's on y'all, not me. But when you buy the gift pack for the Adrian Trilogy series or Short and Gory, you're going to get a $100 Naked Wine voucher. Now, you can either put it in your sweetie's stocking, you can hang on to it and use it yourself like I did, or you can give that along with the book and be a great bookmarker because they can hold on to it even after they use it. They can drink their wine, read my books, and hey, you're the hero, dude. You hit it all the way around. So keep that in mind. Inbox me. I'm running a special. There is a fee for shipping, of course, that you can get the Adrian Trilogy series and a t-shirt and the wine card. Short and Gory and the t-shirt and a wine card. Don't have t-shirts for Wicked Truth yet, but hey, you can pick that book up. It's a good deal. I'm going to do a little price discount on it. Probably be a wash by the time you pay your shipping, but excellent reads for anybody that's a fan of horror. I've got all spectrums of horror covered for you. So forget the black t-shirts. Like I said, they don't need any more. Hook me up. Message me on Facebook, and we'll get you something in the mail. And that way it'll already be here for Christmas, and you never even left the house. All right. So I knew I wanted to hook you guys up with that. Don't tell a whole lot of people because it's just specially for you guys. But it's about that time. Now, y'all already know what you got to do. You got to kick out the damn kids, dim the lights, grab that tasty adult beverage, and lock the door. This is time to get your scary on. But before we do that, let's see who else is in the house before I get rolling, because I forget to look sometimes. Steve Landrum, Robert Hawk, Wade Cuevas. Good Lord, Wade Cuevas. You got me any of that watermelon moonshine whipped up yet? Freddie said, you and John both are getting a custom Christmas card from me that I will design myself. Oh my God, that's so awesome, Freddie. I love you. Rory Rogers is in the house. Jose Garcia says, hi. Hey, Jose. Kathy, my girl, the hotness is in the house. Jessica's in the house. And Rhonda, oh my God, Rhonda, it's freaking freezing here. Okay, so now we've talked a whole lot about serial killers on this show. And of course, there's a whole bunch of sadistic bastards floating around out there. And speaking of that, I'm guessing that you know. If you don't, I'm going to hook you up with some knowledge. Charlie Manson dropped dead at the age of 83, either late last night or early this morning. Now, I am a creepy chick. Does that mean I'm mourning him? Oh, no, because that was a twisted little bastard. My mind don't twist in that direction. But I will say that I heard it through the grapevine that Satan himself has placed an internet order for a wheelbarrow full of those little blue pills, and he's eagerly awaiting Manson's arrival. It's gonna be a party. He's gonna ride that ass all night long. And I think just maybe after tonight's show, he may actually lock Manson up in the cell with Jeffrey Dahmer. Oh, yeah, that would be fitting as hell, wouldn't it? All right, so a couple of weeks back, the Oxygen Network actually did this two-part exclusive documentary, I guess, on Dahmer, because you can't interview him these days. You can, but you won't get anything but little voice clips on an EVP reading, which they actually do have some of, but we're not going to go there tonight. So we already know from past episodes of us talking about Dahmer that this dude murdered a total of 17 men. One of which he confessed to, but he was actually never convicted of because of lack of evidence, even though he confessed he did it. But I got to tell you, I did actually learn a few things from this documentary, and I remembered a few things that I forgot. Anyway, regardless to him confessing and getting away with that one murder, this dude actually was sentenced for, I think, 936 years in jail because there wasn't a death penalty at that time. The dude actually said he deserved the death penalty. He wanted to die. However, they just let him rot in jail for a little while. We're going to get to that too. Now, as with all serial killers, there were all kind of early warning signs, but your boy, he was actually built in like a chemical lab. See, his biological mother was thrown to hell off. She had all kind of mental problems. This chick was eating like 27 prescription drug pills a day. Now, this is back like in the late 50s, early 60s, or what have you. Yeah, late 50s, early 60s, I guess, while he was an infant. So I'm not real sure what he could have been taking, but it had to be some harsh shit to make him as screwed up as he really was. But anyway, she had issues and she had the baby. The baby seemed healthy, at least physically anyway. But part of her issues with him was that she didn't like to touch the child. And she would come unbolted if somebody else touched him. The only time she would hold him is when she was feeding him, changing a diaper, or posing for a picture with the kid. A little odd. And I think that pretty much built a foundation that created the monster that this dude actually became. MJ's in the house tonight, too. Hello, my girl. Hope all is well for you. And Dan Bedell just joined in. Tune in. Just stay tuned in. We're talking Dahmer tonight. This is going to be a pretty awesome show. So if you're into serial killers, you're going to dig this. But not just the serial killers. We're going to do all kind of crazy tonight. Just watch. You're going to love it. So Dahmer is like other serial killers. They always appeared from the outside to be basically normal kids. And a lot of them, from what I saw, actually looked like Diary of a Wimpy Kid. You know, they're always the kid with the glasses and kind of nerdy. Dahmer actually was a good-looking guy from the time he was an infant all the way up to the time he went to jail. But, you know, there were things that he started picking up that normal kids don't really do. Now, some kids always will take a jellyfish on the beach and poke it with a stick. But when I say playing with dead things, Dahmer took it to a whole new level. He was just starting to kind of pick up that habit, and he got into his early teenage years, and his biological parents were divorced. Well, back in the day, his father lost custody to his crazy ass throwed off wife, and she had both the kids. There was actually a little brother, and I'd like to do a little research on this little brother because God only knows what happened to him. He's probably a federal judge or some shit now. But anyway, he gets left with his mother. His mother's thrown off. She's there at the house with him and his little brother for a few days, and that didn't last long. She snatches up the little brother and hauls ass, leaves Jeffrey in the house with barely no furniture, and the only thing in the refrigerator is like a gallon of spoiled milk. So that just kind of kicked him into a whole other gear of crazy, even though he was just a kid and just kind of getting started out. So Jeff goes to live with his father and his stepmother for a while. Now, a lot of the interview was actually done by them. Of course, they're elderly now. And I got to tell you, these are the most normal people you've ever seen in your life. They were actually heartbroken. And still, years later, they're still in disbelief that Jeffrey could have been this crazy right underneath their eyes. I mean, they believe that he did what he did because, for God's sakes, he admitted to it. But they just couldn't understand how that happened right underneath them. They were Christian people. They tried to keep him in church. They tried to keep him in school. They did everything that they could have and should have done to make sure that Jeffrey had a decent childhood and was brought up correctly. But Jeffrey had something that a lot of other kids didn't, but most other serial killers do. Not the crazy gene, because I've got that too, and I haven't killed anybody lately. Jeffrey had an extremely high IQ. And it was kind of like he was living a dual life, even at the time when he was an adolescent, because he was this good kid, kind of like a Boy Scout dude, making sure he took care of the little old ladies, opening doors for him, helping carry groceries. Good kid. But at the same time, he's killing animals. And by the age of 15, he's sitting in the woods with a sawed-off baseball bat ready to commit his first murder. He actually admitted that in one of these interviews. At 15 years old, he had contemplated and was fixing to act on killing his first victim. It was this dude that used to jog through their normal, everyday, every place United States neighborhood, little cookie cutter houses, all the kids playing on the lawn. This one dude jogs through there every single day. Well, Jeffrey decided that he wanted him. Didn't necessarily want him dead. He just wanted it. Wasn't even a sexual thing at 15. So he hides in the woods and he waits and he waits, and the jogger never showed up that day. So there you go, folks. You're putting off jogging and putting off doing your aerobics and Pilates and all that crap. There's a reason for it. Don't beat yourself up if you decide you're not going to run tomorrow. There may have been a serial killer waiting in the tree line to smash your head in. You did the right thing, right? I hope so. Hey, my Uncle Dub's in the house. Give Aunt Wanda a hug for me. It's cold as hell. Y'all need to cuddle up and things. All right, so this was like in the early 70s, maybe mid 70s, but by 1978, he was starting to let his crazy hang out a little bit. He was still a teenager, he was still in school, but he was drinking heavily and openly. One of the other chicks that did several segments of the interview said that she actually went to high school with Dahmer and college with him for the one semester he went. And she said Jeff was drinking a lot and openly. Meaning, for example, she said that Jeffrey actually came to class one day with a cocktail in his hand. Nobody said anything to him. It was obvious what he was doing. Nobody stopped him. I think that's kind of cool and everything, but with the track history that this dude's already starting to form, maybe somebody should have given him milk instead. He also hung out at his locker where, of course, he had alcohol and whatever else he was doing at the time stowed. So he was turning into a lush, and he wasn't quite 18 years old yet. Well, there's some, I'm sorry, I kind of lost myself for a minute with the visual on that. That was terrible. I won't even share that with you. So they're interviewing this woman, and she said that he, of course, would come to class with a drink in his hand, and he would hang out all over the place drinking. He would pass out all over the place drinking. Well, it got to be a little bit too much for his Christian family to handle, so he's almost 18 at that point. I mean, almost by maybe a few weeks. So they kick him out. Dude, you got to go. Get a place of your own. You're going to be pulling that shit. You're not doing it under my roof. I know y'all have all heard that before. So now he's living in his own apartment, and he's unsupervised. This is the place where his first murder went down. So Jeffrey's driving along on the highway, and he sees this dude walking. He's actually trying to hitchhike. He's trying to get a ride to a concert that was happening a little bit later that evening. Well, he didn't have a shirt on, and Jeffrey decided he liked what he saw. So Jeffrey pulled over and offered the dude a ride, told him, hey, dude, before you go to the concert, that's a couple of hours from now. Come out by the crib, let's hang out and have a couple drinks, and we'll chill out, and it'll be all good and everything. Well, Jeffrey gets the dude to his apartment, and he's enjoying his company, and he didn't want him to leave. But the guy's starting to get a little nervous. It's getting late. He's not where he needs to be at for the time he needed to be there. He's a little lit, and Jeffrey's probably smashed by then. So he decides he's going to stand up and say, well, you know, I really need to be going. And he goes to inch out the door. Well, Jeffrey came unbolted. Jeffrey took a nearby dumbbell and bashed the guy over the head. And when he hit the floor, he strangled him with it. Now, here's the whole thing with Dahmer, and it recurs through every single murder that he committed. I won't always recap on it, but I just want you to know up front, like I said, he didn't want the man to leave. He had an issue with killing people, but what he wanted was for someone to lay there beside him and let him touch him and do whatever he wanted to without him moving, but he didn't want to be touched. Well, you guys know where that came from already. Jeffrey killed every single one of his vehicles, every single one of his victims, but he never disposed of them immediately. He would snuggle with them and keep them in the bed with him, or set them at the table with him and have conversations and enjoy their company, at least till they started stinking to high hell. Well, this dude, he actually got rid of a little bit faster than the rest because it was his first victim, and he was freaking the hell out. So it takes a few weeks, and he starts cutting the body up, and then he decides, well, I'm going to bury it in the storm drain back behind Dad's house in the woods. Well, here's where some irony comes in. There's actually two ironic points with this first murder. Dahmer gets a little apprehensive about the body being in the storm drain. He's afraid somebody's going to find it. So he decides he's going to go and dig it up, So he digs the body up, puts it inside a green trash bag, and he waits till late that evening. Throws the green trash bag in the back seat of his car, and he starts driving to ditch the body. Well, he's freaking out. He's probably lit to high hell because I would have to be kind of screwed up to have a corpse riding around in my back seat too. But so he's swerving all over the road and he gets pulled over. Irony number one. So the cop walks up to the car, asks him what the hell's going on. Are you drunk? And he's able to pull it off. No, I'm cool. I'm just really upset because my parents got divorced and we're just all fighting. And I just thought I'd take the trash out this evening so I could take a little drive and clear my mind. The cop actually shined his light on the green trash bag in the back seat, goes back to his cruiser, and writes a ticket for Jeffrey. Jeffrey pulls away with the corpse in the back seat of the car. You're going to find that he had several close calls with the law, and you just kind of have to wonder if it was just, I don't know, ignorance, or maybe it was an omen that Jeffrey was supposed to kill all these people. I don't know. I don't know exactly how that works. Maybe these 17 victims weren't the greatest people on the planet, and maybe that was Jeffrey's whole reason for being here, was to take them off the planet. I don't know. I'm not the judge. But anyway, he goes off and he takes the rest of the remains to the dump. So in the meanwhile, Dahmer actually graduates high school. He pulled that off. He was 18 when he graduated. So he immediately enrolls in college, but he only was able to keep his crazy under wraps for like one semester, like we said before. By then, he was a raging drunk, and he had only one thing on his mind, and it wasn't murder. Like I said, he was looking for that life mate. But it was his father and his mother's encouragement and support that actually kind of helped keep him in line. Dahmer actually wound up taking his father's advice, and he enlisted into the military. Now, that was in December of 1978. Now, here's where I learned something new. There was a span of time that went by after he enlisted that he actually had no victims from what we knew. There were no murders. But since this documentary came out, there were two gentlemen who stepped up and claimed that they were victims, and their stories were rather convincing. Having watched them live in this documentary, I got to say they were telling it like it was. I'm not going to repeat their names. I believe their names were revealed in the documentary. It's really worth your while to watch it. Remember, it's on the Oxygen Network. That's how you can Google it and find it. But the first gentleman that stepped up said that Jeffrey raped him. He was, of course, a bunkmate. And Jeffrey at this time wasn't exactly where he thought he should be rank-wise with the military, but he was cool, and he had a small area with just one bunkmate, and this one dude was fortunate enough to be his bunkmate. It only happened a few times with him, but it screwed this first victim up so badly that he was discharged for mental issues. He turned into a vagrant, turned to drugs, turned to drinking, lost his family, lost his home. He lost everything before he was finally able to come to terms with it and go get some kind of counseling. He's just started rebuilding his life. That was in 1978, 1979. That was insanity. Now, the second dude that came along actually took the first dude's place. He said Jeffrey raped him every single night. He would be asleep and he would wake up and be handcuffed or tied to the bed or whatever the case would be. First thing went through my mind is, if you know it's going to happen every single night, be waiting with a bat on night number 2, right? There was some other things going on, and as this dude started explaining himself, I kind of felt his pain. I empathized with his situation. Here he was, a 17-year-old kid that had just enlisted in the military. He was bunked with this dude that was known to be a violent drunk and throwed off, Jeffrey Dahmer. And he was at this base where the bulk of the people that were there were hardened Vietnam vets in a society that was still rioting because they were involved in this war. And he was afraid that if he, at 17 years old, spoke out and accused a fellow soldier of raping him, that he would have just more than Jeffrey to deal with, that the rest of all of these men on this base would team up on him and beat his ass daily. Things were different back then, not anything like they are now. So I see his point, and that probably could have happened. He did the right thing, I guess, by keeping his mouth shut. And of course, he's had counseling because he's had a few things to deal with as well. Bailey has joined, so is Pamela, and my boy Josh TKO Turner is in the house. Happy late birthday, my love. Go give Wanda a kiss for me. And I see my boy Johnny Alfonso. I must be rubbing off on you. You're starting to tune in kind of regular. I'm twisting that little brain of yours up. You like it, don't you? All right. So after all of this happens with the rapes at the military base, he eventually winds up getting kicked out of the Army because he's so drunk and so screwed up all the time that he can't function anymore. So instead of going back home to Ohio, he decides he's going to go to Florida and just crash on the beach for a while. That's what he did for several months. Now, between 1981 and 1986, he was arrested 3 more times, all 3 for being drunk and stupid in public. And this ain't no tater salad joke. Well, by now, Dahmer had become a master in manipulation. And every time he'd go to approach these courts, he would put on this sob face and he would apologize and display deep remorse. And of course, the public was all there and they always took his side because he was in the military and he was from a divorced family and his mother mistreated him when he was young. So he'd wind up walking out of those courtrooms with a slap on his wrist and maybe a small fine here and there. This is now 4 times Dahmer has walked away from the authorities. By 1987, Dahmer's crazy was hanging way out. That's when he murdered Stephen Tuomi. This is the one murder that he confessed of, but he was never convicted of. Dahmer says that he woke up in a hotel room next to Tuomi's dead body and that he didn't remember anything that happened. He didn't know why he was there, who the dude was that was next to him, why he was dead, clueless. At least that's what he said. So he reacts because he's all kind of freaked out. He doesn't know what's going on, so we assume. And the first thing he does is he leaves the hotel room. He goes and buys this massive suitcase. You know, back in the day, they had these suitcases where you could stow your wife in it and put her in a plane as a carry-on. Yeah, one of those. So he goes back to the hotel room and he starts cramming this dude's corpse into the suitcase. First place he goes from there is to his grandmother's house. This one he actually got rid of a little quicker than the others as well. He carried the body down to the basement. He'd hang out and have drinks with it for a few days. But as the body started stinking the joint up, he starts carving it up to get rid of it. Now, he's smart. I told you he's got a high IQ. So here's how he's dealing with getting rid of this body. On Sunday, Grandma goes to church. Sundays, Dahmer's in the basement cutting parts off of his boy Tuomi. He's throwing it into a trash can. And, of course, Monday morning, bright and early, that's when the trash guys come to pick it up. So it took the course of a few weeks for him to actually get all of Tuomi's body out of the house and into the trash can. And, of course, even admitting that he did all of this, he wasn't sentenced for any of it. Even if he got away scot-free for the murder, there was the whole dismemberment thing and failure to disclose thing. He still gets away with all of it, you know, besides the whole 936 years in jail for the rest of his victims. Well, 3 months later, Dahmer decides to kick it into even a higher gear. In January 1988, he convinces his 14-year-old boy to come back to his grandma's house with him because he'd offered him money to come and pose or do some nude photos with him. Poor kid. So Dahmer makes this kid a drink, and of course he spikes it. And when the kid passes out, he strangled him. But he did take photographs. They're really bizarre. You should Google them. In fact, this was just another evolution of his technique. This was the first victim where he started taking photographs. It's because he realized that once they started stinking, he had to get rid of them. Well, his whole point in murdering these people was that he wanted to keep them with him. So the first logical thing that pops into a serial killer's mind is take pictures. They last forever, right? So this is when he started with this 14-year-old kid. You know, he would sit and hack them up, and sometimes he would actually take pictures of them then. Sometimes some of the pictures were taken while he was having sex with the corpses or doing other odd, macabre things. And this is when he started, or how he started collecting his trophies. Of course, the skulls and bones and other things came a little bit later. So 3 months after that, Dahmer runs across Richard Guerrero. And he uses this whole same nude photo tactic on this guy. And again, after drugging him, Dahmer strangled him. This murder marked an even further evolution in his insanity. He was so desperate for somebody just to be there with him that at the time he stole a mannequin from a department store to sleep with. And this mannequin actually kept him pacified for a while. And there was a period of a few months that went by before he killed somebody else. Like I said, all he wanted was somebody to lay there quietly, still, let him touch him when, where, and how he wanted to. And that was it. Mannequin was perfect, but it wasn't the real thing. And it didn't last for very long either. I see Patricia Purser, Carol Poche, and Mike Robson have joined in too. Y'all, we're doing Dahmer tonight. Stay tuned in. It's still going to be crazy. All right. So in September of that same year, he actually encounters this 13-year-old boy, and he offers him $50 to come and take some nude photos with him. So the kid, of course, agrees with him. Dahmer gets him back to the crib, does the same thing. He offers him a drink, which, of course, is spite. And so a little while later, the kid's passed out. And he, of course, rapes him like he did all the others. But for some reason, he let this kid go. Only under the condition that he never said anything to anybody about it. Well, in the meanwhile, Grandma's house is stinking to high hell. But she's clueless. She don't know what the hell's going on. So she actually asked Jeffrey, "What are you doing down in my basement, son?" Well, Jeffrey tells her that he's taking up taxidermy. And he's just got a whole bunch of roadkill piled up down there. Well, Granny gets pissed, makes him clean up his shit, and then tells him, if you're going to play with dead things, go to your place and do that. So that's what he did. All right, so he's chilling at his crib, but before he gets to point out another victim, he gets arrested for sexually assaulting that 13-year-old kid. Jeffrey spent 10 months in jail with 5 years probation. 5th time he's with authorities. He's serving 10 months with a list of victims already lined up behind him. So during the 10 months that he's incarcerated, part of the reason why he was supposed to be able to get off early and have the probation was that he was supposed to attend counseling, 1-hour sessions once a week for 10 months. The counselor also did a segment in this documentary. I don't know why flags weren't going off at this point, but this counselor said Jeffrey would come into his office and sit there for 1 solid hour and never say a word, week after week after week. So he does what he was supposed to do. He goes to his counseling, and of course he winds up getting off with his 5 years probation. He was released in January of 1989. Now, Jeffrey, of course, decided he was going to try to be good, but March rolled around a whole 3 months later, and he decided he was going to strike again. So he used the same old tired-ass tactics as before, and he lures Anthony Sears over to his place, not Grandma's this time, and does pretty much the same thing with him that he did with all the rest of them, with the exception, apparently he didn't want his house to stink to high hell like Grandma's, so in the meanwhile, he's invested in a 55-gallon drum of acid. So this is another evolution in his murder technique. He now has the 55-gallon drum of acid that he can dump his victims' bodies into. Well, that was all fine and good for the flesh, but it didn't take care of the bones. So once the flesh was eaten from the bones, he'd have to fish the bones out of the barrel and start grinding them up to get rid of them. And I'm not real sure, it wasn't specific on how he got rid of the bones. We don't know if he flushed them, put them down a garbage disposal, threw them in the neighbor's trash. We have no idea. But that was his newest and latest technique for getting rid of these bodies. Now, Ernest Miller was the next one to come along. No, I'm sorry, he wasn't. 1990, he struck 4 more times. But in September, on the 2nd, he started sliding a little bit further into his crazy, if that was actually possible at that time. And that's when he met up with Ernest Miller. The pictures of these victims, there were no similarities. Usually, when you have a serial killer, they want the blonde females or black males or whatever. Now, the bulk of Jeffrey's victims did happen to be black, but that wasn't a preference thing necessarily. His apartment was located in the middle of a housing project where the majority of the people who lived there were black. So it was just a convenience thing with him. His only thing was to find the best looking victim, male of course, that he could get his hands on that night. Well, this night he actually found a really good looking one. He was a black gentleman. His name, like I said, was Ernest Miller. He was a professional dancer. And again, Jeffrey's tactics evolved. Ernest was the first that he saved flesh from to consume. It was a big body. He was very muscular. I'm sure he started rotting fairly quickly. So he hated to just throw that big, beautiful, black, muscular body into the barrel of acid and never be able to see it again. Of course, he's got his pictures, but that was such a waste, right? So he cut out his heart and a big chunk of his bicep. Now, he fried his heart up, but he admitted in the interview that it was just way too tough to eat. He couldn't even chew it. So he threw that away, and he decided he would fillet this dude's bicep and cooked a meal to go with it. And he sat at the table with the Polaroid snapshots of him and the dude, of course, post-mortem, doing whatever it was he was doing to the man's body post-mortem. And that was his way of actually keeping Ernest Miller with him for eternity. He ate him. Anyway, like I said, another evolution. Dahmer said that the bicep actually tasted like beef. So, we hear all the time that human flesh tastes like chicken. Take it from Dahmer. Beef, baby. All right, so Dahmer managed to keep his demons at bay at least for the next few months. But in 1991, he went absolutely apeshit, and his motive shifted again. Dahmer said repeatedly that he never enjoyed murdering his victims. He, of course, was just trying to keep a way to keep them with him. He began trying to basically zombify them instead. This is really interesting. Now, this dude's got a high IQ. It would have freaked me the hell out if he'd actually been successful in it. But what he would do is he would mix a cocktail of drugs and try to drug them and keep them in this zombified state. Well, one of two things happened. Either the drugs backfired and he killed his victims, or they woke up and he killed his victims. So he tried this for 7 different times for the 7 different murders in 1991. His first attempt was Curtis Slaughter in March. Errol Lindsay came in April, and then in May, Dahmer meets his 14-year-old kid, which coincidentally was the brother of the kid he set free and wound up doing time for. There's another ironic little twist. You would think that this kid's brother wouldn't have fallen for the same bullshit line that his brother did, but he did. So Dahmer again had offered the kid cash to come and take some nude photos, and the kid, of course, agreed to go home with him. So he offers this kid a spiked drink, and of course the kid accepts it. And a little while later, he's passed out. So Dahmer rapes the kid, and then he takes an electric drill and he drills 2 to 3 inches down in the top of his head, deep enough to where he could hit that brain. And he had mixed up some kind of toxic chemical cocktail and injected it with a syringe into the hole in the kid's head. He figured he had it this time. The kid was going to be a zombie. He was going to be his bitch, and he was going to stay there for the rest of his life just to make sure Dahmer was happy, right? So Dahmer gets up, decides he's going to celebrate, and he goes on a beer run. The dude's got a high IQ, but he leaves this kid awake and coherent in his apartment to go on a beer run. So while he's gone, this kid actually wanders out of his apartment. You can't say he was trying to escape, because who knows what kind of mental faculties this kid's got left now. The neighbors look out in the street and they see this naked, bloody kid wandering around, and of course they call the cops again. So a little while later, they're trying to talk to the kid. Of course, the kid's completely incoherent. They think he's wasted. Well, up walks Jeffrey Dahmer with his fresh six pack to the police to see what's going on. He informs the police then that the kid, who they were assuming was an adult, was his consensual lover, and that they'd just been fighting, and the kid was drunk, and he was just going to take him back to the apartment, and everything was going to be just fine, and they'd live happily ever after. The police agreed to let him do that. So just to make sure everything was going to be happily ever after, they go ahead and escort Dahmer and his consensual adult male lover to his apartment. Well, they open the door, and here's another serial killer trait for you. And it kind of worries me because I'm OCD as hell. I don't like anything out of place. Well, neither did Dahmer. His apartment was immaculate, and it always was. Nothing was ever out of place. It was perfectly clean, and that's what the cops saw when they walk in there. So Dahmer leads the kid over to the couch, wraps a towel around him so he's not sitting there naked. And the police kind of walk around looking. They see nothing. So they leave and wish the lovers a good night. And actually, one of the neighbors did several different segments throughout this documentary. She said she loved Jeff, and this Dahmer dude was not the same person that lived across the hall from her. He was caring, and she actually tried to hook him up with dates to, get him a woman. But at this point, she was one of the ones that called the police back and said, "What is going on? Why is this kid back in the apartment? Something is wrong." Jeffrey said later in an interview that had the police walked 10 feet further into that apartment, they would have seen Guerrera's corpse laying on the floor next to his bed where he'd been spooning him for the last 3 months. The corpse had been there for 3 months. The police were 10 feet away, and again, Dahmer gets away with murder. He even admitted in the interview that he could not believe that he was absolutely shocked he wasn't busted right then. Another close call, right? So, of course, the officers were reprimanded. It was a little too late by then because several more victims, 4 in fact, would be alive right now today had they just taken the effort to walk all the way through the apartment. But that didn't happen, and so the police district wound up paying out some serious money after that. Well, Tony Hughes came in May, then Matt Turner in June, Jeremiah Weinberger, Oliver Lacey, and Joseph Braidhoft in July. Also in July was the attempted murder of Tracy Edwards. Now, this was the guy that brought him down. Dahmer was trying to convince Edwards to let him cuff him to do some bondage photos. Edwards actually let him put the cuff on one hand, but when Dahmer asked him to lay face down on the bed, put both of his hands behind his back to be cuffed, Edwards said, it ain't going down that way. So Dahmer starts acting kind of crazy, and Edwards said he'd had enough of it, and a second man now runs butt naked from out of Dahmer's apartment and into the streets. And who are the first persons that he encounters? The local police walking their beat. So he walks up to him and he holds his hand up with the cuff hanging off of him and explained kind of sort of from his point of view what was going on. It was supposed to be a little lover's tryst, and it got out of control. So he asked him, well, can you take the cuff off my hand? So the cops dig around and get their handcuff keys, and they fiddle around with it, but they can't get the cuff off of him. So they ask him, well, where's the key at? And he says, well, I guess it's in the apartment. And he says, but I ain't going back up there. Y'all got to come with me. Again, the police walk to Dahmer's door, and they knock on the door. Dahmer's sitting on the couch, and he was admittedly wasted at that point in time. He remembered it vaguely, but he said he was pretty toe up from the flow up. So the police walk in, and they shine a light in Dahmer's face, pissed him off good, and they said, where's the key at? And he points over his shoulder at the bedroom. Well, Guerrera's body's gone by then, so they're not going to find a corpse in there, but they did find something. The first police officer walks into the bedroom and sees the key laying in the middle of the bed. So he picks the key up and he turns around, and beside him is an open chest of drawer. So, out of curiosity, he shines his light in that drawer just to see what the hell's going on in there, right? In that drawer were over 80 Polaroids of Dahmer's different victims, some of them while they were still slightly alive, some of them while he was abusing them, and some of them while he was dissecting them. So it was the bonanza. They'd finally found that serial killer that they'd been looking for the whole time. They'd arrested him and he'd served time in jail, and he'd done all kind of crazy stuff to where they should have had him in jail a decade sooner. Um, so this guy hollers out, get the cuffs, lock him up. We're taking him downtown. So through it all, this whole event, everybody, the entire world, not just the state or the nation, but the entire world is in shock because here's this dude walks into the police station and just starts telling everything exactly the way it went down. It took several days for the police to remove all of the evidence from his apartment. And then, of course, they went to his parents' house. And, of course, they went to grandma's house and they found evidence there as well. Well, it took weeks for them to sort through all of that evidence. And as far as the body parts that were still laying around, I'm not real sure where carbon testing and DNA testing and all that stuff was at that time. But it took several months to figure out what pieces, parts belonged to who. And of course, there weren't trophies for every one of his victims in his apartment as well. But here's Dahmer admitting everything. He's taken full responsibility, other than the fact that he made several references to the fact that he thought he was either ill or sick or both. But the judge wasn't buying that bullshit. They studied him, tested him, psychologized him, and everything, and they found Dahmer 100% sane. Let that sink in just for a minute. So anyway, here comes the last part of the irony as far as Jeffrey Dahmer is concerned. They put him in jail, and the first place they put him, I forget exactly which jail it was, but the first place they put him, it was for violent offenders. Well, Jeffrey actually wasn't violent. He was getting his ass kicked a whole lot. And the feds wanted to see him serve some of his sentence outside of the infirmary. So they eventually moved him. I think it was like 90 days later, somewhere around there. They moved him to this other little lower impact prison. Of course, there were still some badasses there and a whole bunch of crazies that were hanging out there. But here's where your irony comes in. Dahmer's on this work detail. It was him and two other dudes. And they're in this bathroom. I don't know exactly what they're doing, if they're scrubbing the floors or cleaning toilets or whatever the hell. But crazy number 3 goes way crazy. He had been diagnosed as schizophrenic. He had all kinds of violent tendencies and really shouldn't have been in this facility to begin with. However, Home Slice had stolen a metal bar from a dumbbell in the prison weight room, and he smuggled it into the bathroom with him. And when he snapped, he bludgeoned both Dahmer and the other party to death right there in that bathroom. So that is a nice little ironic, quirky detail. He died the exact same way his first vehicle, I don't know why I keep wanting to say vehicle, but his first victim died. One other little quirky fact about Dahmer, the day he died was November the 28th. That's my birthday. I think that's kind of cool. So let's see who else is hanging out with me. Well, we got Manish in the house and my girl Belinda from Carrier, Mississippi. Good to see you. My cuz is in the house, Angela McNeese. It's good to see you hanging out. And Angela said happy Thanksgiving. Well, happy Thanksgiving to all you folks as well. I hope you got your turkeys picked out, your ham picked out, because if you got to go to Walmart tomorrow, you're going to be screwed. It's going to be a madhouse. I'm actually going to go first thing in the morning. I think I'm going to wear all my friends are creepy t-shirts so everybody will stay the hell away from me. But I do already have my bird and my ham there in the freezer right now, waiting to be thawed out and cooked up for what we're having the Saturday after Thanksgiving, thanks Christmas. I have the kids coming over. It's going to be an awesome time for all. So, yeah, cozy little time to get together. Now, Dahmer's dead and gone, but he's not exactly gone because we've actually talked about that. He hangs out at a couple of those jails. He's seen frequently on that college campus, which he was only there for one semester. I'm not real sure why he's so drawn to going back there. Of course, he's at his apartment and he goes to visit grandma's house pretty regular too. Now, you would think as well that he would hang out at his father and his stepmother's house because that's where the first corpse went after he committed his first murder. There's been a ton of testing. The most information that I've found about that is a few slight EVPs that could be technical issues, could be technical errors. Um, but the EVPs and the photography and video that has been shot in both of these prisons are rather convincing. It is his voice. He speaks coherently. He answers questions. So I don't guess that Satan will be locking him up with Manson anytime soon because if he's not in hell right now, he's obviously still here if he's hanging out. All right, so we were going to talk about some nut houses. We already did nut cases and a couple other things, but I've rambled too long. I told my producer, Jimmy Bell, that Naked Wines is probably a really bad sponsor for me because when I drink, I ramble. And we could probably sit here and talk for another 2 hours talking about crazy houses and crazy cults and all kind of crazy because we're on crazy tonight, right? Naked Wines. This is awesome. This ain't no Thunderbird, and it sure ain't no Boone's Farm. So remember, if you want to order those gift packs for your favorite creepy kid for Christmas, we can get that shipped out and in your hands well before the holidays, and you get that $100 wine voucher from Naked Wines to put to good use. Now, let me explain how this happens. You join the Naked Wines Club, and you become a member. You pick how you want your wines. Do you want it all red, all white, domestic, whatever, and however you want it? You want 6 of this and 4 of that and 2 of these? That's great. They don't care. The first order that I got from them, they actually give you a couple of bonus bottles too. I did half red, half white because I like it like that. It shows up at your door, and unless you change your order, every quarter it will come shipped to you again. Now you can put these packages together, and of course they've got some pre-packaged deals for you to choose from. You can find them from 140, 150, 160, but you've got the 100 covered already. And with your initial first time order, no shipping, no excuses. That's some really good wine for a really good price. And either keep your membership or don't, but you're missing out if you don't because a quarter, that's like 3 months. Do you know how many bottles of wine you could go through in 3 months? You're going to need that next shipment. So check that out. You can go online and check out nakedwines.com. I think you'll like what you see there. If you have any questions, ask me because I've probably tried that one. I'll let you know if it's good or not. But I got to tell you, have not had anything bad from Naked Wines. They also send you all kind of little cool things to go along with it. Menu charts to tell you what wine complements what food the best. That's a good thing to have. Some recipes and the history of each bottle of wine, where it came from, the people who grew the wine, the people who made the wine, really interesting stuff. So check that out, nakedwines.com. And while you're .comming, go look at movieloversunite.com. That's my boy Glenn Spillman's online magazine. There's some crazy cool stuff going on that magazine. He's got a great little setup on that page, and he's got a great little Twisted Horror Queen columnist as well. movieloversunite.com. If you'd like to see Glenn in person, you can catch him on Facebook Live Wednesday nights where he does Sports Insider on Armed Radio, and catch him again on Friday night when he does Cellar 13 Films because he's like an actor and a stunt guy and a producer and all that madness all rolled into one. So check him out there. And while you're checking him out, check me out at authorlyngibson.com. You can look at all of my books, read a little excerpt from each one of them, look at pictures from past events, look at upcoming events, and check out the Adrian's Fury Dragster tab. All right, folks. Well, I've rambled on long enough tonight, and that wine glass ain't going to fill itself. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope you're all Dahmered up. Check out Oxygen Network and see if you can find those clips. They're only 40 minutes, 40 plus minutes or so a piece. Of course, they've removed the commercials. If you're interested and you really want to know how a serial killer's mind works, you can't get any better than hearing it straight from the horse's mouth. And that's what you get here. All right, folks. So, like I said, hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you guys have a fantastic Thanksgiving and holiday season. And tune in next time. We'll be here on Armed Radio and Tune In Satellite. But until then, y'all keep it creepy, because you know I will.